I'm standing next to a cornfield near Washington, D.C. Corn and soy are the leading crops in the U.S., covering 70 million hectares or nearly 180 million acres of land. They aren't just grown for food and animal feed, they're also grown for biofuel. That means that this field is on the front line of the debate over alternative fuel sources and what really counts as sustainable. Take the aviation industry. Airplanes burn fossil fuels and account for 2 to 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions. The number of flights is projected to double by 2050, so if we're going to tackle the emissions causing climate change, we'll need to try to decarbonize aviation. This matters because if corn like this goes to produce biofuels to power jet engines rather than feeding people, is that a good use of prime farmland, especially as global food demand continues to grow? That's why alternative aviation fuels are one of the World Resources Institute's stories to watch for 2025. Although governments pursue crop-based biofuels for a variety of reasons, including supporting rural livelihoods and increasing domestic energy production, WRI's research shows that dedicating land to biofuel production is actually worse for the climate than burning fossil fuels. For example, if just a quarter of global aviation fuel by 2050 came from crop-based biofuels, massive amounts of farmland would be needed to feed those engines. If it came from soybeans, this would require tripling the world's vegetable oil production, which would lead to clearing another 600 million hectares of farmland, an area nearly twice the size of India. This level of additional deforestation and ecosystem conversion would be a disaster for our efforts to fight climate change. This would also lead to higher food prices, more habitat loss, and more fertilizer use and water pollution. Countries are already setting targets for alternative aviation fuels, and one big thing to watch is what they say about where these fuels should come from. In China, the European Union, and the United Kingdom, if fuel is made from food crops, it can't be considered a sustainable aviation fuel. That's good. On the other hand, the US has ambitious alternative aviation fuel targets, but still allows that fuel to be made from food crops like corn or soy, which would increase emissions. India is also planning to start blending in alternative fuels for international flights. Governments and researchers are looking into the potential for aviation fuels made from biomass wastes and residues and e-fuels made using renewable electricity. Those are better options than food crops, but there are still issues around availability, costs, and potential to scale. This means that exploring additional strategies to reduce aviation emissions will also be important, including developing electric planes for shorter flights, reducing contrails, removing carbon dioxide from the air, and flying less. At WRI, we are working across a range of countries to understand the impacts of different alternative aviation fuels on people, food security, nature, and the climate. That's why alternative aviation fuels are one of WRI's stories to watch for 2025.